All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Short Stories, Long Talks. Today, we're not really talking about productivity hacks, but we are diving into a story that takes this whole idea of a shortcut to a really mind-bending place.
Yeah, it's fascinating right off the bat, isn't it? How something so simple, just wanting a quicker drive, sort of spirals into this deep look at the edges of reality.
Exactly. We're getting into Stephen King's short story, Mrs. Todd's Shortcut. It was first in Redbook, then later in Skeleton Crew.
Right.
Now, you might just think, okay, a story about finding faster routes. But honestly, if you've ever wondered what's just beyond what we see every day or felt that little pull towards the unknown, this story, it offers some really incredible stuff without, getting bogged down.
And it's interesting, if you think about how we all kind of want to learn things faster, find those intellectual shortcuts. This story, even though it's fantastical, it really makes you think about resisting limits, especially, time.
Yeah, totally. So our mission today, really unpack these shortcuts of Ophelia Todd's. What are they really? Not just roads, right? What could they represent about, our own desires?
Yeah.
And why does this little story still grab people? Okay, so let's start at the start.
Okay. So the story comes to us from Haven, Maine. It's told by this older guy, David. And he's looking back, remembering his friend, Homer Buckland's wife, Ophelia Todd, and her very unusual habits.
And it kicks off with something totally relatable. Ophelia just wants to find quicker ways to get from Haven to Bangor to see her sister. I mean, who hasn't wished for that? Stuck in traffic.
Oh, absolutely. It starts so grounded, just wanting convenience. Yeah. But it pivots really fast into the extraordinary. That's when the shortcuts start becoming, as David puts it, shorter than straight lines.
Right, that phrase alone.
Yeah. It tells you immediately, okay, we're not in Kansas anymore. We've left the normal map behind.
Yeah, this isn't just finding some clever back road. She's tapping into something fundamentally different.
Right.
Which brings us straight to this idea of defying limitations, doesn't it?
It does. So what do you think was really driving her at first? Was it just shaving off a few minutes?
I really don't think so. The way she's described, this vibrant, almost reckless spirit, it feels bigger than just getting to Bangor faster. It feels like she's actively pushing back against, the mundane, the slow, predictable decay of life, as David calls it.
That's such a crucial point. Her search becomes this symbolic rebellion. You've got David and Homer who seem more accepting of just getting older, the way things are. But Ophelia, she's trying to actively bypass it, not just on the road, maybe in her own aging process too. Her energy just feels off the charts for what you'd expect.
It definitely makes you think about the shortcuts we might look for ourselves, doesn't it? Even metaphorically, like learning something fast, hitting a goal quicker. Ophelia just takes that human urge and pushes it somewhere.
Yeah.
It's somewhere really strange.
And the way King builds that strangeness is just masterful. It's not like, bam, monsters everywhere. It's this slow creep, this gradual reveal of the uncanny. What details about the shortcuts really stuck with you?
Oh, wow. The imagery, right? Trees with colors that just belong in nature. That road feeling like driving over velvet. What a weirdly specific tactile thing. And then seeing the sea where no sea should be, or stars that aren't our stars. It's like the basic rules, physics, nature. They're just bending or maybe breaking entirely.
Yeah, that dreamlike logic, people call it. It's so key. It makes everything feel deeply unsettling because it's almost familiar, but then these fundamental things are just wrong. It suggests maybe a different reality altogether.
Exactly.
And the contrast is brilliant. The very normal goal, visiting her sister, set against these totally impossible landscapes. That just cranks up the unease, And
it's not just the places changing, right? Ophelia herself seems to be transforming. She's described as incredibly beautiful, energetic, and it almost seems like the journeys themselves are fueling that.
Yeah. Which brings in this really interesting and kind of creepy idea that these shortcuts might actually be rejuvenating her somehow.
Yeah.
It hints at this unspoken price, maybe, for defying the normal rules. Like she's becoming, something else.
Totally. There are these subtle little hints, like a kind of body horror, but not gory. It's more this dawning realization that maybe she's not aging normally anymore.
Right.
Her independence growing, that mention of her eyes glowing sometimes.
Yeah.
These little things suggest she's being fundamentally changed by chasing these routes. Her desire for youth, for speed, it's literally altering her.
So then you have Homer. He's sort of our anchor in all this weirdness.
Yeah.
How do you see his role playing out?
Homer is just... he's us, right? He's the relatable, completely bewildered husband. Starts off skeptical, naturally. But then he gets dragged along on these trips and feels the weirdness, the fear himself. He's our witness to the uncanny, the one we identify with as we're trying to process this impossible stuff.
And what keeps him going along with it, even when he's clearly scared and confused?
Oh, it's gotta be his love for Ophelia. Deep down, that's the core of it. Even as she's drifting further into these strange realities and their life is totally changing, he sticks by her because he cares so much.
Yeah.
But in the end, even he can't quite stay grounded, can he? His own disappearance into the shortcuts is so ambiguous, just adds to the whole mystery.
Which really feeds into that classic King theme, doesn't it? This idea that our everyday world is maybe thinner than we think, that other realities are just sort of lurking nearby. How do the shortcuts fit that?
Oh, they feel like textbook examples of that thinness, like actual rips or weak spots in the fabric of reality.
Yeah.
They aren't just alternate roads on Google Maps. They're literally passages into places with different rules. Time works differently. Space works differently. And Ophelia, for some reason, the story never fully spells out, just has this knack, this intuition or connection to find and use them.
It's interesting thinking about King's own ideas about horror. He talks about it in Danse Macabre, the gross out, horror, and terror. Where does this story land for you?
Oh, it's almost pure terror.
Yeah.
There's hardly any gore, no jump scares really. The unsettling feeling comes from that creeping dread. The implications of what's happening to Ophelia, what these places are. It's the suggestion, the unknown, that really gets under your skin.
Exactly. He's a master of that psychological unease. The story shakes you up by messing with your basic understanding of what's real, not by throwing monsters at you.
And the characters Ophelia and Homer, even in these wild circumstances, they feel so real, so human. How important is that relatability?
Oh, it's absolutely crucial. Because we recognize their initial normalcy, their relationship dynamics, it makes their brush with the impossible hit so much harder.
Yeah.
And then you layer on David, the narrator. He's looking back, telling the story through memory, maybe with some fuzziness around the edges because of age. That whole framing device adds yet another level of, well, ambiguity. Is it exactly as he remembers?
And don't forget David's own little moment, that almost throwaway line where he mentions experiencing a weird shortcut himself just once. That adds this little jolt of credibility, doesn't it?
It does.
It's not just some tall tale he heard. He had his own tiny glimpse. Makes you think about those weird little unexplained moments maybe we all have sometimes.
Now, for King fans, the setting Haven, Maine, or at least nearby Castle Rock territory is pretty significant. How does plugging it into that larger universe add to the story?
Well, Castle Rock is basically King's ground zero for weirdness.
Yeah, right, Mitch.
Yeah, so even if the shortcuts aren't in the town proper, putting the story in that familiar zone just reinforces this background radiation of strangeness. It tells you that in this world, the extraordinary is always kind of simmering just below the surface.
And it fits that pattern in his work, you know? Regular people bumping up against these hidden, powerful, sometimes inexplicable forces. The shortcuts might not be evil like some Castle Rock entities, but they definitely represent a reality that's fundamentally other.
And you start wondering, is Ophelia's ability some kind of shining? Maybe not exactly like Danny Torrance, but a sensitivity, a way of perceiving these cracks in the world that most people are just blind to.
It's possible. The story also taps into another recurring King fascination. Aging, the fear of it, the ways people try to fight it. You see that explored so differently in books like It or Gerald's Game. Dolores Claiborne, two older characters facing down big challenges linked to their age.
Right, and Ophelia's shortcuts feel like this really bizarre, maybe dangerous, but definitely fantastical answer to that fear. It's like a literal strange attempt at refusing to grow old gracefully. And that's such a universal human anxiety, isn't it? That fear resonates pretty deeply.
Yeah, definitely. If we zoom out a bit, beyond just King, where does this story fit in literature more broadly? What connections do you see?
Well, it definitely slots into speculative fiction, maybe magical realism, anywhere the rules of reality get kind of bendy, where hidden dimensions can leak into ours. I sort of get vibes of, say, Neil Gaiman, like in Neverwhere, you've got that whole hidden London existing right alongside the real one.
That's a really good comparison. Both play with that idea of an adjacent reality, though maybe, like some critics say, King's shortcuts feel more like transient pathways, almost empty, whereas Gaiman's other worlds often have their own complex societies living in them.
That's true. It also reminds me a bit of writers who find the uncanny in really normal, often rural settings, like Shirley Jackson, maybe, or some Southern Gothic stuff, where the familiar landscape itself starts to feel warped and unsettling. Taking something as mundane as a shortcut and twisting it definitely has that feel.
And one last thing that runs underneath it all is obsession, wouldn't you say? How does Ophelia's hunt for these shortcuts change over time?
Oh, absolutely. It starts out seeming practical, maybe even just a bit fun, a cure for boredom, but it morphs pretty quickly into this all-consuming thing for her. An obsession, maybe even an addiction. And yeah, it gives her these amazing experiences, access to the extraordinary, but it also pulls her away from her normal life, changes her in ways we don't fully understand by the end. You're left wondering if that initial spark, just wanting efficiency, maybe being a bit restless, turned into something way deeper. A fundamental need to break out of the limits she felt.
Which leaves that big question hanging for you, the listener. Was her final fate, whatever it was, a kind of victory, a freedom from age and normal space, or was it tragic? A final step into something completely alien?
So yeah, the key takeaway here is that Mrs. Todd's shortcut is way more than just a weird little story. It uses this fantastical idea, these impossible roads, to really explore our own urges, to push boundaries, physical ones, existential ones, and it definitely plugs into those deep anxieties about getting older, about the reality we think we know.
And that image, Ophelia, forever young, just driving and driving on roads shorter than straight lines, it sticks with you, doesn't it? Perfectly captures that central mystery and why the story is so compelling.
So here's a final thought to maybe mull over. What kind of shortcuts might exist in our lives?
Not roads, maybe, but something else.
And what would happen if we took one? What's the price? And how we chase knowledge, or the reward, or experiences, or even, I don't know, happiness. And what are the unseen landscapes, the unexpected transformations we might stumble into if we actually dare to veer off the main road? Maybe think about the thin places in your own map of the world. Something to chew on.
A great thought to end on.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah. Until next time.
Until next time.
See ya.